What is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm BLAIDEN, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, in Matthew Spinauer and Theo Ash. We have a great episode planned for you all today. We're in the beautiful situation where normally we record an episode and then big news drops, but today, big news dropped right before we started recording this episode, which is that Kyrie Irving is getting traded to the Dallas Mavericks. We're going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk about our favorite seasons from the NFL season as opposed to doing like an MVP off of the player of the year type stuff, because we will probably all just come up with the same guys for most of those awards. So we thought it would be more fun to discuss our favorite passing, rushing, receiving, and defensive seasons this year. But before we get into all of that, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing today?
I'm good. I went through a little rebrand. I got a haircut for the first time since like last spring. So that was fun. And then I got my ears pierced at Claire's, a place where I will never step again. I didn't know what Claire's was. I thought,
really?
Like, I had no idea what it was. I just know that people got their ears pierced there. So it's like, I'll just type in Claire's and I'll just go do it, knowing nothing about the process. Claire's is the worst store I've ever seen in my life. I almost just turned right around. I had an appointment. It's just so like, I don't know. It's just not my type of store. It's a
they
type
got
of
every
store.
type of earring you could want, man.
That's true.
Nothing is off the table earring wise at Claire's.
If I was like a 12-year-old girl, I probably would have been pretty psyched about Claire's, but something inside me was like audience, was really screaming like, do not show your face in that store, man. But I didn't know anything about getting it. I thought it was going to be like a much more kind of painful process than it was. They're like kind of much more of an ordeal, but they're like, sit down in that chair. And then they took like a stapler looking thing and just went like, juke. And then it was done. They're like, see ya. I was like, okay.
Maybe you're just really strong and tough. Have you considered
maybe
that?
I'm just really strong and tough, but I thought it was going to hurt. And
you're a better man than me,
myself.
man. I'd be in tears. I'd be rolling on the floor. I
don't think you would. I don't think you would. It's really not too bad. But
you've never seen me get a shot before, so
a shot. This hurts less than even a shot does, I would say. But I don't think shots hurt either. I don't think shots.
I just don't like the idea. It's kind of like a gross thing to think about.
Yeah,
with the shot. I can boss up, you know. But
yes. No, I don't enjoy getting them for sure. I also think that it's, a little bit of a squeamish idea, but I definitely can tough up. This isn't even like an ear piercing is pretty. I don't even think that's like that gross of an idea.
It's like popping a pimple more as far as pain levels.
Maybe it's really not too bad. So I would say maybe a little bit more than that. I would say it's a little bit more than that, but it's. I thought it would hurt, but it didn't. So for everyone who's, I don't know how many people listening to this are not getting their ears pierced because they're too scared of the pain. But if you are, not to worry, it's not so bad. But so I'm doing good. Going through a little. I don't know if a rebrand is
THEO Ash
well, did you cut your hair because that's what you wanted to do, or did you cut your hair because of the some odd comments that were like, Theo, it's time, that I thought
well, I've been getting the Theo, it's time comments. If I was affected by those, I would have got my hair cut 6 months ago, because that's what I've been seeing those for 6 months. I was sick of it in my eyes. I was trying to play racquetball and like it kept flopping down. I couldn't see shit. And I was like, okay, I am sick of having all these bangs and whatnot. You could tie it into a bun or whatever when it was as long as mine. But overall, I was just like, I'm sick of it being so long. It's been almost a damn year. It's time for a change. I was not moved by the comments, but
okay,
yeah.
Matt, how are you doing?
I'm okay. I don't know. I never have anything.
You never have anything, man.
Still waiting to get in my house.
Yeah.
The shit's never going to be fixed.
You should get a nose piercing.
But you're supposed to talk to them tomorrow, right? You're supposed to talk to them tomorrow?
I'm going to. I have low expectations, I'm afraid. I mean, I get it. I don't blame anybody working on it, but it just
you should
makes me angry.
blame them. You should.
I'm about to go put in the drywall myself at this rate, but I don't think I could pull off a nose or ear piercing. I don't think I have it in me.
So either. Maybe not a nose piercing, but I think you could. I think anyone can pull off an earring.
I don't know. I don't know what type of earring I would get. Like a little stud. I don't know. One of those little dangly ones. I don't know. A hoop. No. There's just not a lot of good options for the Spawn Hour aesthetic, I'm afraid. So
a LeBron earring.
There we go.
Hold on. The LeBron
The 23 in
or 2 and then a 3. But then maybe people would think it was Michael Jordan, and that's a risk I can't run. So.
Well, no, if you do the right colors, you do the.
Well, no, it'll remember MJ in a couple weeks here, in a couple days here.
Oh,
so
yeah,
you won't have to worry. When people see 23 in a couple days, of course they will think LeBron.
Matt's gonna get the 2 and 3 in his ears, and he's gonna get a "My Glorious King" tattooed on his neck.
I've got plans for when he breaks the scoring record. I'm working in Photoshop now tirelessly, so it's coming. But
I'm excited.
Big Kyrie news, big trade news.
Kyrie.
We were
Speaking
talking
of LeBron's legacy, yes. How does this affect LeBron's legacy?
I try my best not to look at this move through the lens of the Lakers because I'm sure that's very annoying for everyone else. So I apologize, but we will be talking some Lakers because I felt like they were the team that was supposed to make this trade, or at least that was the buy-in from the cultural zeitgeist on NBA Twitter. But yeah, man, it's pretty crazy that Kyrie got moved this quickly. I can't remember another time where a player's like, "I'm done," and the team's like, "Great, you're gone," within the span of a weekend. I mean, last time we talked. There was
we were days away from the trade. Yeah, I think we were.
No sign that this was going to happen at all.
Yeah, Brooklyn was posting on TikTok about like Kyrie and KD being all stars. Like,
yeah, it's such a tough situation. There's nothing else really like it. From the Nets' perspective, I kind of lean that maybe they should have just taken the plunge and signed Kyrie and given him the money because the team was legit. They are so legit right now, at least before they traded Kyrie. I mean, I thought that they were going to be like a tier 1 contender. And granted, being a tier 1 contender in the East could easily mean that they're out in the second round. But blowing it up, which is what they're going to have to do now, I mean, without your own picks is going to be wonky. And they're a very wonky built team now. They have like a very, very deep bench. But putting that aside, I can't fully blame them for being like no more Kyrie. We just they don't have it in me anymore. Okay, we tried, they put together the team. It blew up quicker than you thought, but even then, if they had been healthy against the Bucks, they probably win the NBA championship. Right? Not to take anything away from the Bucks.
Yeah.
But
there is no way they could re-sign Kyrie. There is just no way that anyone in that building wanted to do that.
For 4 years is what kills them. And I think the thing you really have to think about with Kyrie Irving, the bigger deal to me with Kyrie, and maybe this is a bad take, the antics are one thing, and they're bad, and the drama that comes with Kyrie, okay. He is incredibly injury prone. He has not played 70 games in a long time. And really, he hasn't had a high-level playoff run in a long time just because he cannot stay healthy to save his life. And he is a shorter 30-year-old point guard. That is the big concern with him. Now, he's still supremely talented. You haven't seen him slow down yet. Obviously, he was still an all-star this year. But I think half the risk you're taking with Kyrie doesn't even have to do with off-the-court stuff. It's about getting him on the court. Just because of the injuries. And, part of it is that he's sitting out because of vaccines. So maybe that's a little bit Mickey Mouse, but he is very injury prone regardless. In terms,
so do you like, or go ahead.
Do I like the trade for the Mavericks?
Yes.
Well, I don't know because what I figured is that whatever team traded for him would be like, we're trading for him. And then 15 minutes later, here comes Woj, but then they've agreed to blah, 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 blah. Nope. They have not agreed to any sort of contract extension. And if you're going into this being like, we're trading for Kyrie and we're not confident he's going to stay, terrible idea. Awful idea.
Yeah.
That's true with any player in this circumstance, but particularly Kyrie. If things don't go well right away, and to be completely honest with you, with how the roster's built, unless they make another big deal, I don't think they're going to be contending for a championship. Defensively, they're going to be one of the worst teams in the league at this point. I mean, how many positive defenders do they have on the team? They don't have a serious interior defender, and they won't be a serious team until they get one, really. But
yes, yeah. They're, I think, 23rd in the league in defense from the numbers I'm looking at right now. It's like 23rd or 26th. It's somewhere in that range.
And you almost have to even throw out the idea of like, okay, well, Luka and Kyrie are both not good defenders. Your best two players both being not good defenders is an incredible uphill battle regardless. But the fact that you don't have the defensive supporting cast around them, like I complain about the Nuggets, not like their best players just aren't strong defenders, and that's really hard to overcome. For the Mavericks, they don't have even like the KCP and the Gordon in place to like go and try to fight that at all at the moment. So that makes me nervous on that end. And the other thing is that the Lakers, you have to remember, Westbrook, $47 million expiring. The Lakers can open up a max slot if they want to. So there is a very, very real world. I don't mean to bring up the Lakers here for the sake of bringing up the Lakers, but they're the only team in contention that would want Kyrie. I mean, like the Rockets will have money, but Kyrie's not going to the Rockets, obviously. You'd think. But there is a contending team that would want Kyrie, that Kyrie would want to go to, that can sign him point blank straight up. It's not like, well, maybe he'll want to go somewhere else, but you kind of have the last say to an extent where you're like, well, it's sign and trade or nothing, and we can recoup our value. It's not necessarily like that. But we don't know any of the details on that. By the time you're hearing this, there could be a deal in place and that could be all whatever. Right. So I think you got to look at the trade through they're going to get Kyrie back. And if that's the case, I don't hate it. Because the Mavericks needed two things if they're going to win a title. They need to get the rest of the defensive pieces in place, and they need to get a second serious shot creator. And by getting Kyrie, even though they're taking the risks, and I want to make it clear, the Mavericks know the risks they're taking. They're not just stupid, right? By going after Kyrie, who is a little bit riskier and who is clearly, when he's healthy and playing, obviously can be the second, shot creator on a championship team. There's no discussion, no debate about that. You've gotten him for so cheap that you've left yourself enough wiggle room to go out and fill the rest of the roster out, because they only traded one pick. They were in line to have all of their picks available this offseason. So I think that's the big positive from this move. Like even in a world where they go trade for like Donovan Mitchell, who obviously is more valuable, fits a timeline better, not as injury prone, not as much drama, great. But then how can you get the rest of the defense together? You don't really have an avenue to go do that in any serious capacity outside of like, here's our mid-level exception, taxpayer mid-level exception, $5 million. Like that's not going to cut it. And while, yeah, they probably would have won a lot of games and gotten pretty far and maybe even made a finals, winning with the defensive structure they have in place now is just not a championship. I don't think it's going to happen. So I like that they've left themselves that wiggle room. I think that losing Dorian Finney-Smith is not great for the defense. Ultimately, I believe that you have to have the strong interior defender. They don't now, and they didn't then. Replacing a wing defender probably... It's tough. It's a tough loss, but I think I like taking the risk. And ultimately, if you want to be right about this, just say that it's not going to work, and you'll probably be right. Like the Mavericks are in a bad spot. They've up like a week ago. If you were the Dallas Mavericks, there's probably not a championship move you can make. You needed Porzingis to work out, and you needed Brunson. You couldn't let Brunson walk. That ended up being a horrible decision almost right away. But I think from where they sit now, I don't hate the Kyrie move. I can see the path to that working. Whereas with a lot of it, like if they had gone and traded like a bunch for like Levine, I just don't see the path to that working as well, because there's other things you have to do. They need so much. They kind of got to take the risk on Kyrie. That's where I stand with it. But as of right now, I don't think they're a serious contender until they get the defense fixed.
I can get behind that. I saw a lot of people on Twitter being like, this team is doing nothing. Their defense is going to be the worst in the league. But I can definitely see where it's like, well, you can't do nothing, right? And you can't spend everything on just another shot creator, another scorer. So I can kind of get behind
it's very much a floor raising move for now. Like before, when it's just Luka, like their floor is pretty low, honestly. Like it's just as far as Luka can carry them. Like they could easily be an early exit. I feel like when it's just him with no Brunson or anything like that. And this move, they're not going to win a championship. Their defense is going to be just too damn bad. Like like you're saying, they're not winning a championship this year. It's just raising the floor. Like there's only, when you've got two of the best scorers in the league, like you can only be so bad, I feel like. And I'm not too concerned about their offense. I know there's some stuff like, oh, they're two ball dominant players. How could they ever work? It's like, man, Luka
Kyrie's
will
great
transform.
Right. The whole Luka playing with a star thing, it's like, well, dude, first off, I don't really buy people look at how he plays when he doesn't have another serious star in his team. They're like, well, that'll never work if he plays with a star. Well, right. He'll never play like that if he has another star player with him.
Exactly. Like you think
he doesn't have to drop 60 a night anymore.
He can't play with a star player. Okay, I guess we'll give him bad players around him. I don't know what to tell you, dude. Like the team needs
I don't know what to tell you either. I saw the Thunder get to everyone would call Russell Westbrook a ball dominant player, but when he played with KD, like the offense was pretty damn good and they got to a finals. Everyone would call Harden a ball dominant player, like those last couple of years in Houston where it was just him dropping 60 every night. And then he goes to the Nets and all of a sudden he's like creating assists and opportunities for his teammates at like a league high, right? Like the great players, they know how to do this shit, right?
Even when he had CP3, like they were, like it worked,
right? Or Westbrook with Paul George, like Westbrook was able to support a second star with Paul George, and Paul George finished like third in MVP voting that year. Like Luka the offense is going to be very good. I think. I am not worried about their two offensive play styles meshing. I mean, no one's got two perimeter defenders that can hold up versus those two. But yeah, I mean, when you're playing the Celtics and there's mismatches across the board, like if they do get to the finals, if they win a weak West, like the defense is just too bad. It's just too bad. So it raises the floor this year. And I think I wouldn't be interested in trading for Kyrie. I think that if I was a GM, I would be like, no, he's, just too much. He's anti-Semitic. He's anti-vax. If the situation isn't completely perfect, like even before COVID or any of this, like in Cleveland, like his role wasn't perfect, so he left there. Like he is just, and that stuff is like a little bit. I don't want to villainize him for like if he doesn't like the culture, being like, get me out of here. I mean, I guess I respect that at least, but from a GM perspective, I'd be like, well, there's a pretty good chance that I can't create the environment that he's looking for because he's never found that ever. So like, why would I trust him at this point? So I wouldn't be interested, but I'm also not overseeing a team that has Luka Doncic, someone who'll probably go down as a top 15 player of all time. And you absolutely need to build a it's easy for me to sit here and say from my apartment, but when you're actually trying to like win a championship with Luka, like these opportunities don't come around every day. So right now I get it. I think it's a floor raising move, and we're only an hour after this trade. So the fact that they don't have a deal in place, like, doesn't completely concern me. Like, I think that can still happen, but yeah, I think it's a whatever move. We'll see what happens next year, because right now I think it's more of a floor raising, and then next year we'll see what their ceiling looks like. But they needed to do something like this. So
who knows? Maybe they'll make some more moves before the deadline.
That is true.
It's not unthinkable. I mean, it's just so tough. Again, if you want to be right about this, just say it won't work, because it probably won't. But I stand by that. The Mavericks already were in a position where they probably weren't going to figure it out entirely. And I think this move gives them the best chance of like, yeah, it's high risk, but you got it cheap and it keeps you flexible. And that probably gives you better odds than giving up the house for somebody and then it's no defense at all.
I very much question the process of letting Brunson walk just to sign Kyrie, or just to trade for Kyrie with 30 games left, who's going to be more expensive and give away all your defenders. But the Brunson move is already done. Like in a vacuum, everything they've done in succession, like, oh, that's not the way to do things. But you already did that. Brunson's not coming back. So you got like, oops, you got to do something. But like, it's a tough thing to come back from if you do something that like is pretty clearly a big mistake.
Yeah.
It's tough to come back from trading all the picks for Porzingis and he's not good. That is hard to come back from. And then Brunson. I'll say that I think the general NBA consensus for their moves have been pro Porzingis, pro letting Brunson walk, and then maybe mediocre on Kyrie. So, but people think they got Kyrie very cheap, so I'll give them that. So I don't know if it's fair to be like Mavericks dumb. And the Brunson stuff, I think the money also starts to play. Like they would have been, their roster is so expensive for considering who they have. I mean, it's just like Bertans is getting like 20 million, and Dinwiddie's getting 20 million. It's like everybody on that. They've got nobody on like a rookie deal. They've got nobody on the league minimum who's putting up serious time for them. It's like Christian Wood's getting 15 million, and it adds up quick. So it's just a tough situation for them, but they're not the only team involved with this. The Brooklyn Nets are too, and maybe even more interesting, actually definitely more interesting than Kyrie is what happens with Kevin Durant right now.
Son, much like every member of NFL media, he will soon be headed to Phoenix for the Super Bowl, playing under the lights, everyone in town, KD included, making his son's debut pretty soon here. That's clearly the direction this is going.
So true.
I see those mock KD trades to the Suns, and people are like, the Mavericks can't trade away all their defense. You have to have a good. And then it's like, okay, well, the Suns should trade away Mikal Bridges and DeAndre Ayton and all their first round draft picks for Kevin Durant. And like, I get it, it's Kevin Durant, but Devin Booker and KD with no defense and 50-year-old Chris Paul, AARP Chris Paul is very concerning as far as what like that team, like talented. AARP. How are they actually winning the title if that's the move they make? It's like, you got to get KD if you can get KD. Yeah.
Right.
But man,
you hope they really like Cam Johnson. You hope they really like Cam Johnson, and you don't trade Bridges. And then Booker locks in defensively. He's not bad anymore. And then you've got Bridges, and then you've got KD and Chris Paul, who have one last shot at the title and play at an all defense level in the playoffs is what happens. And then they cruise through this godforsaken Western Conference, and then Tatum breaks his leg and they beat the Celtics. They
beat this. Lots of injuries happen, and they beat the Celtics G League team. I can foresee it.
So true.
The thing about a KD trade is that it's almost too early to start. Sick. It's almost too early to start talking about it, because I would be pretty shell shocked if it happened before the deadline. I mean, that would be
it's all happening so fast. And I think you could still talk yourself into Brooklyn as a playoff team. I really do. Like you said, they have a deep bench, and they've got KD, and they have is it Cam Thomas, who just dropped 44 the other night? Like, I bet you KD is just like, bro, just we'll see at the season. He already demanded a trade. It didn't happen. They made the coaching change he wanted. I think what happens is the Nets just stay where they are. They make the playoffs. They're a first or second round exit, and then they trade KD, and then they're like, well, the core is all right. And I think that's probably what happens. Right.
I agree. There's it's just so hard, because you need to see the rest of the season play out before you really see who is like, we need to go trade for Kevin Durant. And so I can't even begin. It'll start with the full pick package, and then the tiebreaker will be whoever offers the best player package on top of that. So one thing that maybe would be interesting is if the Celtics were to just straight up lose to a healthy Bucks this year. If that was the way that things played out, and I don't know if it would be, would they be like, what move can we make? And is it Kevin Durant? Because we cannot not win a championship with the team that we have right now. But it's so hard to start guessing. I honestly think if the Nets go full rebuild, especially with all the role players they have, that I think they could get first and second and other good young players. And they kind of have some good young players on the team now. It would be pretty good, other than the fact that if they're bad, they don't really benefit from it that much. But they look at the Thunder or Utah They should be saying, why can't that be us? Why can't that be me? They could get picks like that. I truly believe it.
One thing is for certain, they are not trading picks for a star player anytime in the next 3 decades. We haven't seen a super team go this badly since the last time the Nets tried to do it. The Nets did it. They are not doing this anymore.
I feel so bad because like the last time they did it in 2013, they were just like wrong. Like that was just a dumb thing to do. This time they were right and it just worked, and we're just in the worst timeline for it. But maybe you could argue they should not have traded for Harden and that they already had the pieces, maybe, but they would have won a championship healthy.
The multiverse definitely has some universes where this Nets team wins like 4 back to back.
It's a lot of them. I mean, it's a lot of them where they get one. I think the health would have always been a problem for them. And this is what, staying healthy. When guys are injury prone, they're going to get hurt in the NBA. It's not rolling the dice. You know what's going to happen.
And they had to build a better culture. They needed a better coach in place, a more proven guy, because like Durant, Kyrie, and Harden all requested trades, and it was all kind of culture based. Like the personalities, they just didn't quite fit. The coaching staff, like it just wasn't. It was forced. It was artificial, and they were so talented. It almost happened anyway. But it really feels like it was just a little bit too kind of thrown together. The thing about like the Warriors super team is there was already that feel like Kerr and Steph and Clay, it all grew organically, and then you add in Draymond, and then you add KD to it, and then it's like awesome. Right. The Nets didn't have any of that, and that matters. But anyway, this helps LeBron's legacy because they would have gotten Kyrie and they still wouldn't have won the finals. And then everyone would have been like, how does he have AD and Kyrie and you couldn't win this year? And now now LeBron gets to ride off into excuses world where Pelinka gets all the blame and LeBron just gets to cook and break the scoring record with no help. And everyone's like, get it.
They win the finals without Kyrie. And then he does it all by himself, and he's the GOAT.
What if?
What if?
What if they win the ring anyway? Anyway, I think it helps LeBron's legacy because I don't think Kyrie would. I still don't think they would have won I think their pieces outside of their stars are just still too damn bad.
I think they would have. I think they would have had a very real shot at the finals, and then they would have matched up with the Bucks or the Celtics, and it's like, oh man, you guys are like actually competitive, like completely well-built teams. This is not right. The one thing I'll say to defend the Lakers and Pelinka, it's questionable whether or not Pelinka went all out to get Kyrie, and I honestly don't entirely blame him for that, although I do think this was the move they had to make. The Lakers could not have beaten that offer. It seems like they could have. They couldn't have.
Maybe if they offered AD or something or LeBron, they could have beat the offer, but obviously they're not doing that. No, nothing with their role players or draft. They don't have the picks and they don't have the role players that the Mavericks do. How can they?
Listen, all I'm saying is Bron and Kevin Durant in Brooklyn could have been magical.
I thought about editing that. You know that cartoon where it was like Giannis chasing after the MVP and then LeBron runs by him and he's chasing the GOAT. I was going to edit that to be Luka chasing after Kyrie and then LeBron chasing after Kevin Durant, but I think people would have taken it too seriously, so I didn't do it.
Maybe.
Ultimately, the Lakers' max offer was Westbrook, Reeves, and 2 firsts. And while maybe it seems on the surface that was slightly more than what the Mavericks gave them, the Mavericks gave them a first, 2 seconds, and then 2 very serious role players. And with that Westbrook trade that the Lakers could have made, they also would have needed the Nets to throw in someone else to make the money match. And the Nets don't have anybody that they don't have any like bad contracts they're trying to punt on. They've got like Seth Curry and Joe Harris, who are like good role players. So then just to make it work with the Lakers, you're giving up valuable assets and it becomes slightly less valuable for the Nets because it's like you're having to throw in good players just to get it to work. And on top of that, luxury tax is a real thing. If you go trade for Joe Harris and you're paying Kyrie $40 million or $50 million, which is the max that he wants, and LeBron and AD, and you need to pay Rui and, the rest of the 10 players, they would have been the most expensive team in the NBA by far. And while you think it doesn't matter for a team like the Lakers, even for a team like the Lakers, we saw it with Golden State.
They wouldn't pay Caruso, man.
They wouldn't give Caruso $8 million a year. It gets expensive because it costs $5 for every dollar you spend. And so an $8 million Caruso deal ends up costing like $40 million a season. You know, so, okay, this Joe Harris contract is now $100 million a season once you get that far into the luxury tax.
Yeah.
It's that much. So I just don't think it just didn't quite work out. It didn't quite make sense. The Westbrook contract is just a few $1 million too big for the Lakers to be able to outbid that.
Fair. Matt, I have some good news for your Panthers before we get into the all stay hot team. Mm-hmm. You just got a new defensive coordinator, former Broncos defensive coordinator, Ejiro Evero.
Let's go.
I don't know if I pronounced that right.
He is not a Viking,
but
he is not a Viking.
Yeah, I know you were really worried. You're like, God, if the Vikings fix their defense, it's
he's pretty good. I mean, they did good. They obviously went from pretty mid defense, even under a guy like Fangio the year before, to one of the top defenses in the league in terms of points per game. So
yeah,
I can't just spitball. I wish I was good enough that I could just give you a bunch of scheme stuff that he's going to do. I don't know that off the top of my head. Maybe I'll do a video on it though. But I mean, the results are good. We know this.
And it's not like the Broncos are just some like overwhelmingly stacked team, despite how many Buckeyes they have in the rotation. They, not that they don't have talent, but it's not, the 49ers defense or whatever. So yeah, I get if you're getting good results out of, solid players. Okay, cool. I can roll with that.
They did some smart things this year, like the Ohio State off-ball linebacker that they converted to edge. Browning, right? Like something like that. Get in the that's something that
Coop.
No, not Coop, but like getting Browning off the edge, like that was a smart decision that paid off for them. He showed some promise there. So like just decisions like that is putting guys in the best position that they can be in to succeed. Like that's what always stood out to me about DeMeco Ryans more than anything is like everybody's role makes perfect sense. And you saw a little bit of that in Denver this year. I'm looking at their stuff now. They play a lot of dime. Looking at no, they don't. They play a lot of base. I'm looking at the EPA ranks, 8th in base personnel. So they like to run with 3 linebackers. They rushed five rushers a lot. So pretty blitz heavy. 30% of the time they rushed 5. That's second in the league. And they did a good job. They were 4th in EPA in those situations. Played a decent amount of middle of the field close. So this is an aggressive defense that they were running. Middle of the field closed, rushing 5. So that it'll be interesting. Guys they've got guys like Jeremy Chin who can, are versatile body types who can maybe come in from the second level, works better as maybe a box safety anyway. Like I could see it. You're going to see something a little bit aggressive from him if it's anything like it was in Denver. So yeah, I mean, and it got good results, and that's the most important thing. So
yes,
yeah,
so, that's your good news, Matt.
To it. Anyway, my nonsense that I was bringing up was that I was watching Kick-Tac-Toe of the Pro Bowl, and I watched Justin Tucker miss twice. Please explain.
Well, we're not doing.
He's above Kick-Tac-Toe.
He's the long snapper outplayed him. I've seen enough. Get this guy out of the Hall of Fame.
Honestly, he's probably gotten to the point where he's done so much great things that he's probably trying to miss on purpose just to prove to everyone
he kicked it too far. Like it would have been a perfect field goal, but it was just too high. But I don't care. I'll push my narratives.
He's too good at kicking field goals. He can't bring himself to not split it right down the middle, and that's why he struggled in kick-tac-toe.
I'd like to bring up they're trying so hard with the Pro Bowl. I feel for them, man. The long snappers out there for kick-tac-toe, and it's like I saw someone on Twitter. They're like, They ruined the Pro Bowl. Dude, what are we talking about? No, there's no solution to the Pro Bowl.
There isn't.
The solution is you offer a prize that is so grand that the players try to play a real football game. Like if you offer every
winner, it would have to be insane.
$50 million if you win the game. Every NFC player and every NFC player is showing up and they're playing a real ass fucking game. But the teams won't be happy because like there's always injuries when people go all out every single game. Yeah. There's going to be like an injury and no one wants to see that. It's just you can't just go play pickup football somewhere. It cannot be done. The closest thing you can do is flag. So shout out them
I'm not mad at them for it. I'm not.
Jair Alexander had a pick six and it was in the Pro Bowl against the best of the best. So
who threw it like
number
Tyler
one
Huntley?
in my book? No, it was actually Trevor, so that's unfortunate.
Are we that impressed by picking off Trevor Lawrence?
All I'm saying is Stephon Diggs threw an interception to Trayvon Diggs. So
did he actually?
Yes.
Scripted. That one actually is scripted, in my opinion. That is 100% like, hey, give Trayvon a chance to pick this one off, man. That one, the NFL, like the scripted, it's all jokes. That's not actually happening. That one was legitimately, they were like, dude, target Trayvon.
Maybe that's the solution to the Pro Bowl. Have it be like literally scripted, like everyone knows it. WWE type, just ridiculous things happening.
WWE pulls in. They pull in bank, dog. Like everyone loves it. Like you could probably hire one of their writers. Right? Hire one of the WWE writers and see if you can't construct a WWE style Pro Bowl.
That is a good idea. WWE is hilarious. I've never been into it. One time me and my friend were watching and like this wrestler was mad at this other wrestler. So he took a forklift and drove it through the guy's car while he was like driving. And they're like playing this off completely seriously. They're like, "What, bro, you can't do that to my car." And then he like lifts it up and is like driving it down the highway with the other wrestler inside. And they're like, "This can only be settled in the ring." And then he like takes a fucking chair and just like beats the shit out of this other guy. We were dying.
Nah. Bro.
So that's what you're right, Matt. That is what we need for the Pro Bowl is we need like, we need a big like, oh my God, here comes Kyler because he used to play baseball with a baseball bat. And he's like beating up he's got a baseball bat and he's like hitting other guys on the head with it. That would be awesome.
That would do numbers. I'm trying to, we'll have to get an in with the WWE and we'll make this happen. But let's go over the all stay hot team. And again, the way this works, it's not about who had the best season or who's the MVP, right? It's which seasons were our favorite passing seasons, our favorite rushing seasons, receiving seasons, and our favorite defensive seasons. So I'm going to throw it to you guys first. We'll start with Matt. What was your favorite passing season of the year?
This is kind of a tough one. I didn't want to just pick all the best players.
Exactly.
It's easy to say what Mahomes did was super impressive, but I figured that we're not going to parrot everything off of just that. You guys know who the best players were and who the all pros were, and I agree with most of them. I'd say my favorite thing that happened, at least passing wise this year, was Geno Smith. I mean, the number of quarterbacks who have turned their career around that late is like Alex Smith and him. How many guys ever do this? I mean, I think that if you're not trending up by the end of 2 years, you're probably not good rule is like pretty accurate. So the fact that he was able to do that and legitimately put up, I mean, borderline top 10 numbers and have the Seahawks, in the playoffs when a lot of people had them being one of the worst teams to start the season. I still think about whether or not this was a good play or not, I don't know. But I still think about that one throw he had week 1 where he like lobs up that lollipop across the field and it's a dot to the other side. You guys know what play I'm talking about?
He was accurate all year, man. He was probably the best downfield thrower in football this year. He was probably the most accurate, like deep, outside the numbers thrower.
He was one of them.
Yeah, Hurts as well. But yeah, Geno, Gino is up there. I think he may have been the best. I guess there's numbers to prove that this is true. I guarantee you he's top 5 in any metric in that way. And off the top of my head, I thought he was probably the most accurate. I mean, he was pinpoint.
Yeah, 100%. So I thought that was really impressive. I think he's in line for a big payday. I think he deserves it. I wonder exactly how much he's going to get. I think this is going to be pretty interesting, considering his age and the fact, I guess you only saw 1 year, even though I think it was pretty real. And the fact, we talk about paying quarterbacks and how well does that work. But I'm excited for the Seahawks. I mean, it's one of the weirdest quarterback situations in a long time. Trading Russ and you still had
severely.
The better quarterback.
Somehow you got better.
I think that it's healthy for the league to see. I think that this was a bad year for the 2-year and their year out rule. It was a very bad year. And I bought into that too. It's not like that didn't have a lot of merit going into this season, but this year I thought there were so many quarterbacks that developed, Daniel Jones and Geno Smith and Jalen Hurts. Like there are a couple more that I can't quite remember, but I think it's healthy that there's not all this QB turnover. And I think it's healthy that, given the chance and maybe a couple more years, guys can develop a little bit more. I think that's it's good to have examples to point to now, because now it's not going to be like a player. Well, it probably still will be like this to some degree, but I do think that it's healthy to give guys a couple more chances and maybe have a little bit more patience in the league instead of, just churning through, oh, guys, this guy wasn't good year 1 or year 2. Like, we're on to the next guy, the next guy. Just churning through those just doesn't seem like
it's not fun.
It's not fun.
Football's a volatile sport by nature. But as a Browns fan, I've lost patience. All right. I want to be good now.
Well, yes. I think with Watson, next year, like, he should be developed at this point. Right. He's obviously was playing like an MVP in 2020. But with young players especially, I think that a little bit more patience would be good. So, probably. And there was no reason to do it. Like, legitimately, that 2-year rule, like, guys who turned it around. Tua is the other guy I'm thinking of, who turned it around. So, yeah, a little bit more patience in the league is.
I still think the guys we're listing off are not going to end up being looked in 10 years as like franchise quarterbacks.
That could be true. And it definitely comes down to this year. How much do those guys all get paid? Geno and Daniel Jones. Like, if they get paid like top dollar, like, you're going to have to carry a team. All of a sudden, it's not going to matter if it looks like you develop. But if there's a world where we live in where guys can develop and be fine and get lower end deals, I've talked about this a million times, and still get like that. I think that's a viable way to build a pretty good team. But if they're getting like mega deals,
it does kind of feel like there's like the rookie contract quarterbacks that are great, and then there's like the superstar contracts, and there's no
the mid-level QB deal is kind of really dead these days. Yeah. So I hope that's what happens with these guys. As far as what they'll get paid, the franchise tag for quarterbacks is, I think, $32.5 million for a season. Mm-hmm. So I'd have to think it's a little bit higher than that for these guys, right? They probably don't want to get paid below the franchise tag.
Dude, so. I just don't think that these guys who it's like, I know Daniel Jones had a nice season. I think he can. It's like, and that's maybe the balance that has to come to the NFL only through trial and error, where it's like, if you are like the 15th best quarterback and you're okay, and if you're in a good situation, you can be all right and serviceable, fine. But I can't win the Super Bowl paying you 20% of the cap. And I think those teams are very legitimately better off letting those players walk, where it's like, you can probably get yourself another Daniel Jones if it comes down to it. If push comes to shove, I would rather let him walk than pay him $40 million.
There's 20 Ryan Tannehills. Like, you'll probably be okay. Theo,
I think for Geno, I think like it's going to come down like 3 years and just over 100 million. I think that's going to be a shade over the 32.5 or whatever, 33.
Wouldn't be bad.
3 years, obviously, is it like a crazy long commitment. And with the salary cap, it went up huge. Like this year, like the salary cap this year is a big markup over last year. So that's going to result in some really big contracts, I think.
Yeah.
So I think like it's going to be about 3 years, 105, 104.
I think that the magic number is 12.5%, I believe. Like, you don't win if your quarterback's making more than that. I believe that sits right at that. And they've got, the other thing is, like, a lot of it depends on, do you have a lot of other good rookies on cheap deals? And at the moment, considering their last draft class was, not so bad.
Yeah.
The Seahawks seem to be in position to do that. So I would agree. I think that's about what his contract should be.
Have another good draft, put yourself in a pretty good spot. Theo, who is your favorite passing season this year?
Mine was actually Burrow, just because I feel like he became the guy everyone was hyping him up to be after the Super Bowl last year. And I could finally like sleep soundly at night knowing that he wasn't getting, or I didn't think he was getting overrated, or like it wasn't jump ball dependent. And, the playoff run last year, I didn't think he played like particularly great. And once he got to the Super Bowl, it was like, oh my God, would you take him over Mahomes? And it's like, man, I just don't think that Super Bowl run was enough to cement him in that conversation as QB2 of the league. And this year, like, the hype with him was never going away. He's a very charismatic guy. He's, he is Joe Shiesty, like, it was just never going anywhere.
Right.
So people think I'm preying on his downfall. I really don't care that there's another great franchise. It's good that there's another great franchise quarterback around, a good quarterback play around the league. So it's good that he developed. And I'm just glad that I can sleep soundly at night knowing it's warranted this time. And I really do think he took a jump. The sack rate really, really went far down. He's getting the ball out faster than damn near any other quarterback in the league instead of holding it, running around. Which was always kind of my thing with him, is like, man, you can't hold the ball that long behind that offensive line. He's going to get hurt. He's going to get, his leg broken again. And I think like he kind of realized that this year, and he was just absolutely pinpoint. And the Bengals offense was a top 5 unit after being around 15th last year. I've been all over all this before, but it was just really a joy to watch him, especially in that Bills game, just hit the top of his drop, ball out, precision. And also having that big play ability where, he's able to break tackles in the pocket when he needs to. Even in that Chiefs game when he got sacked so many times, there were a bunch of times where he broke that first tackle and like, oh my gosh, is he going to get out of this? But he could quite slither his way all the way out of it. So I was happy to see him take that. I was relieved to see him take that leap. I was relieved that I can put the whole Joe Burrow slander chapter behind me. And that was the one I was most happy to see.
The Bills game was truly phenomenal.
Yeah, he was balling. He was balling.
Yeah.
What about you, Blaiden?
I guess that does leave me. You already know who my favorite passer of the year was.
A certain Jalen Hurts.
It is a certain Jalen Hurts. And for a similar reason as you, Theo, with Burrow, but kind of on the flip side, I'm relieved that Hurts became the player that no one thought he could be. All right. And Matt, you know this as well as anybody. Jalen Hurts as a freshman in college could not play. Like, I will be the first to say it. And we were watching his highlights, I think that was last night that we were doing
watching him last night. And we're watching his like freshman Alabama highlights. And I was like, man,
bro,
if I saw these before the draft, I'm like, this is not moving me at all.
This dude stinks. I mean, he couldn't play. He was one of the least accurate quarterbacks ever, but he's just a worker, man. I mean, that is a man that just keeps working. Like literally there was like stories where they would have to kick him out of the weight room at Alabama after games because he would just go and lift after games because he just like always trying to get better. So for me to see him, finally make that last jump, because it was always like increments. It was always like, oh, he gets a little bit better. For him to finally make that jump to being one of the most accurate downfield passers in football was so beautiful to see. And yes, you needed the help from AJ Brown. Adding that piece was huge.
Who don't?
But I mean, he was great in his own regard.
You deserve your victory lap on that for sure. I don't think anybody was more right about Jalen Hurts than you and the entire world outside of his family who believed in him or like his coaches or something.
Literally, his mom was the one liking Blaiden's. Mrs. Hurts was in the like stay hot comment section, being like,
you were so
you were
so high on
Jalen
Hurts. His mom agreed. But
it was literally Blaiden and the Hurts family.
And that was it.
No exaggeration that actually happened.
I guess what it came down to is like, I agreed that Hurts kept getting better. And I think if you looked at like the numbers and how he'd played, you could be like, okay, yeah. But does that mean he's going to become like the top tier, like franchise guy? I always wondered, it's like, maybe he just never really makes that leap and he like gets better.
Right. He gets to the Geno Smith level where it's like, yeah,
he's
like
real good, but not that guy. No, he did take that leap, and that's definitely one of the biggest storylines, quarterback wise, of the entire year.
I think the impressive thing with Hurts, and I made a video about this on TikTok too, is it's like you really want it's like each increment wasn't like, oh, he marginally got better at this one thing. It's like, it's not like, oh, he marginally became a more accurate passer. No, it's like, oh, I'm bad at this offseason, now I'm good at this, right? And that's kind of what drove this. It wasn't like, because last year he was the least accurate deep passer in football, right? So what did he do this offseason? He became the most accurate deep passer in football, right? Those are I think that's really the big thing. So one thing I do want to start doing in future when like looking at like college players, it's like, well, how do they improve their game? And that's going to be hard to judge. Jalen Hurts is a different case because I was just a fan of him like when he was a freshman in college in 2016. So it's easier to track when you're just like only watching this one guy for 6 years, but you know, trying to over the course of a week dissect someone's entire college career is going to be
just
difficult.
Google the box score.
Yeah, but like box score doesn't tell you everything.
And then watch.
I'm just looking at
you could throw 12 touchdowns for 3 years and then 40 your senior year. Does that mean that you just randomly had to jump your senior year, or did you marginally improve at some things and then all of a sudden it all came together in your senior year? I don't know, but Hurts had a great year. I'm very happy for him. Very happy for his family. He's my favorite passer of the year, deservedly so. But Matt, your favorite rusher of the year?
I'm going with Justin Fields, which is the best. Not calling him a running back, but the best. I think the most valuable rusher this year has to be Justin Fields. I mean, his running ability like kept them in games that they were just completely not in for a long time. And he was just not like that at Ohio State. Like he did, but not like this, man. Not like if he had stayed healthy, he would have broken like the rushing record for a quarterback level of rushing ability. It's unbelievable. And I think maybe part of that is he's not done the best job getting the ball out. And sometimes he misses things, and maybe that leads to him having more rushes. But ultimately, man, there's a lot of times where not only is he making the defense, keep track of things, but he's just creating ridiculous, explosive plays. And then there's so many plays where it's a defender's in position to make a play, and it's like, too bad, dude. Justin Fields just better. And then he goes and does something ridiculous. So I shudder to imagine what a Bears team with just like a mediocre whoever quarterback looks like, with no ability to do what Justin Fields did on the ground. And it's too bad that rushing performance didn't end up in a good offense or like a lot of wins or something. But really, I think, maybe it's unfair because, running backs are just not going to be that valuable. But the most valuable rushing performance by anybody this year was Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was number one in the league in yards per rush, 7.1 yards per attempt. He was, I think, top 10 in the league in rushing yards overall, even though he missed time. He had 33 runs over 10 yards. He was first in the league. He had 89 runs this year where he hit 15 miles an hour. That's only ahead of Aaron Jones. That's ahead of Aaron Jones, who's in second. And then Hurts, and actually Daniel Jones is up there too. Derrick Henry, like at the top of I think he's first in the league in rushing EPA. I mean, it's every single stat you could possibly think of, except for maybe total touchdowns.
Yeah.
He's at the top of it.
The one thing you would have to
answer.
The one thing you would have to think about from this season of Fields is just how much this impacts like people's perception of Ohio State quarterbacks, because it's already hard to like analyze them because it's like, oh, they never face any pressure and the receivers are always wide open. But now it's like, do we even know what kind of player we're watching anymore? Because
it makes you wonder about Stroud and
right.
how he never takes off and stuff like that.
It does.
And, maybe he does have a little bit more in the tank. And I think that he does. I see Goff comps for him. And I think he's way more mobile than that. There are flashes where I see it. It's like Goff is not doing that. It's just in this offense, there's either no need to do it or maybe they're asked not to.
Right.
I do think that Stroud has a little bit more rushing ability than he lets on, but not as much as Fields. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean,
that's a big ask. And the whole Ohio State quarterback thing, it's like, if you're looking at how good Justin Fields is to figure out how good CJ Stroud is, you're too far gone, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Fields was also number 1 in rushing yards over attempt by like almost 200 yards. Rushing yards over expected. My bad. Most rushing yards over expected. Which
we'll count it, even though this stat objectively is wrong. Actually, I looked it up, and that was made by people who don't watch football. I'm dead serious.
I mean, most stats are.
Yes,
this is why you don't trust them. Only trust the simple stats we know, like yards and touchdowns.
Fields is number 1. Fields is number 1 in it. So
true.
So it gets a pass.
Yeah, so true. If it fits your agenda, then it works. But if it doesn't, then it's crap. Theo,
as with all stats,
who is your favorite rusher this year?
I'll say Saquon. I just never thought we'd see a season like this from him again after all the injuries. Like he really didn't look like he had the same burst he used to last year. And I know he was hurt, but like it had been since his rookie year. Running backs, their shelf life is so short. I really thought like, man, his best days are already over. So to have a year where he looks electric again and is near the top of the league in yards behind that offensive line, that brought a smile to my face. Absolutely. And I'm glad he made himself some money this season.
Yeah.
It just would have been a really sad ending for him to have that great rookie year and then never really replicate it for someone who's probably the best prospect that I have ever watched at Penn State. I mean, the guy was just unbelievable, and I had such high hopes for him. And he was a freak his rookie year. He was amazing his rookie year, and I thought I'd never see anything like that again. And this year, I still don't think he was as good as he was his rookie year. Or I don't think that he was maybe quite. At this point, I kind of expected him to be like, this clearly the best running back in the league. Like we talk about him, like we talk about Adrian Peterson. And I don't know if he quite hit those heights, but it was still really nice to see a productive year out of him. And I love the redemption stories. I think everybody does. And that was certainly one. I for one, counted him out a little bit, and I was glad to see him prove me wrong there.
Absolutely. I mean, I just remember the Browns kept getting mocks to take Saquon.
Number 1, right?
Yeah. First overall, they were like, oh, you guys should take Saquon. And then, who did they want us to take? Because we had 1 and 4 that year. Because I think that was the same year we got Denzel.
He was probably a quarterback at 4 then.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly.
Probably
it may
Rosen
have been
or something.
It may have been like Saquon and then Darnold or something. I don't remember, but like
or Mayfield at 4.
Or Mayfield at 4 if he fell there, right? But yeah, it's great to see him have a great season. Theo,
there's a reason he was getting number 1 pick height. There was like, you shouldn't take a running back that high. Absolutely not. But like, he was the best player in that draft, like easily. He was crazy.
Yeah,
at Penn State,
he was. Theo, I thought for a second as I was like thinking of guys to pick for this, and I was like, oh shit, Theo and I might pick the same guy because I know we both like Tyler Algier, but like. We watch him play, and it's like, obviously, this guy just always falls forward. Physical, just a gutsy runner. He will put his body on the line to pick up 3 yards. And I just love that energy from a running back. But then you look at like the numbers, and we can talk about how much these are valid or whatever. Number one in heavy boxes faced of like 8+ man boxes, 40%. That is an unreal number. To then also be like top 10 in yards over expected, also have over 1,000 yards, 4.9 yards per attempt. I mean, he was just outstanding this year.
Yeah, really angry runner, really physical guy, kind of that typical one cut, which is good for a team that runs as much like zone as the Falcons do. Like if any little crease opens, he's super, super decisive, and he always falls forward. It's not a really sexy running style from him. It's just one cut, and then we're going to be a beast running downhill. And it was really quietly effective down in Atlanta. And you didn't break off any super crazy highlight level runs, but over and over and over and over again, he made the right move. He saw the right hole, and he was decisive. And yeah, like you said, he always falls forward. He's a tough runner, and this was a great year for rookies: Kenneth Walker, Breece Hall, Dameon Pierce. And with all of that, Algier gets lost, but man, he was top 10 in a lot of different running stats.
No, he's like top 10 like all of them, except for like total. He's had like 1,030 total yards, but it's like DVOA top.
Even
5,
that among
DYAR,
running backs, there
5.
weren't a lot of 1,000-yard runners this year. Like he's
I think
14th
he may have been top,
overall.
Okay, 14th. Yeah,
and what's his name? Fields is up there. And so you can move him up to 13th in total yards. So he only had 3 touchdowns though. So not a great fantasy player, which is also the thing that will get you. If you're not a great fantasy player, you're not going to get a bunch of hype. But I mean, he was effective for the Falcons in a season that I definitely felt got underrated. So yeah, that's a good pick.
He's awesome. Matt, favorite receiving season this year? Doesn't have to be a receiver.
This is where I'm concerned of us having the same pick.
Really?
Me and you, or you and Matt?
No, me and Matt.
Oh, okay.
Oh man, I feel like there's someone I'm. Oh, I know who you're picking. Okay, well, I've tried to stray from being too far biased. I'm just gonna say Tyreek Hill. One of my least favorite things in sports is the idea, particularly in football, this doesn't happen in basketball as much, is the idea it's like you have a guy like Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Tyreek Hill all playing together. And the question that people try to answer is like, which one of these guys is actually not that good and is only good because everyone else is really good? And the same thing, it's like you can throw Andy Reid in that bucket. Everyone's like, who in here is sneakily no good? And the answer, if you want, it's like none of them. They're all really great. So to see Tyreek Hill go to a situation like that and be, he was fighting for Offensive Player of the Year till the bitter end and just be completely ridiculous. And it's like, it doesn't matter who's throwing him the ball. If it gets anywhere downfield, he's getting it. And to have the season that he had where, I mean, at a point where like, can he get 2,000 yards? And that's with, somebody, I don't even know how many targets he had this season, but I'm sure his yards per target was ridiculous. I mean, how many
his yards per route run was like ungodly high. I haven't checked it in a while, but maybe I could right now. But I remember at a point it was like 3.3 and Justin Jefferson's was like 2.5, which like 2.5 is a crazy number for him to be.
Right.
It was, I mean, the efficiency this year was just unbelievable.
And there's just so many plays. I really don't mean to say anything against Tua, but there's a lot of plays where it's like deep ball. There's people down there. It's not in the best spot, and it just doesn't matter. Tyreek's ability to track the ball is probably the best in the NFL as far as I'm concerned. I don't know who else I'd had. I have no rankings of this, but I'm saying it's Tyreek Hill with zero research. And to be that level of playmaker and to single-handedly change an offense, he's one of the. I mean, he has an argument for being the most valuable non-quarterback in the NFL. And I'm very happy with how he did this year. He was ridiculous. So shout out to him.
Yeah, I think that he is someone that I have pushed as best receiver in the league. I can see it right now. His yards per route run was 3.3. The next best wide receiver was AJ Brown at 2.8. And yeah, that's just a amazingly big gap. Like he is the most valuable in the league. Like his big playability, like the team has more explosives wins most of the time, and no one gets explosives like that guy. Just absolutely no one. And obviously Jalen Waddle is fantastic as well. But it's just a bit different with Tyreek. He is something else, dude.
Yeah. So Theo,
with Theo?
yeah.
I think a lot of the receiver performances this year are kind of same old hat. They're old hat. It's the same names that have been great for a while now. Obviously, I love AJ Brown, and I think he blossomed into the guy that I've been saying he could be for a while, like an all-pro caliber, a top 6 receiver. But he's always been good, and Justin Jefferson's always been good, and Diggs and Tyreek Hill. My favorite season, confirming our draft priors, was Garrett Wilson. I think that both him and Olave, not to make this an Ohio State show, but truly they were the best two, I think, young receivers in the league. And I mean, for Wilson to do it with Mike White and Zach Wilson and Joe Flacco at the helm is ridiculous. And he's still, up there in yards and all of that. And he's just electric. I love watching him play. He's like an insect, and everything he does after the catch, it's in a style that is not quite like anyone else. And I know a lot of the draft nicks before the season, a lot of them preferred Olave versus Wilson because Olave is the smoother guy. He's more traditional. He runs routes the way they're supposed to be run. He does everything the way it's supposed to be done. Wilson just does it on his own little time. He is running wild routes with these wild angles, and they're just not quite the way you teach them. But he just does it in his own little special way that's a little bit more severe. It's a little bit more animated, like arms and limbs flying around. He's taking these sharp cuts that no one else can do, and it translates after the catch as well, where he's just juking guys out with he drops his hips and just completely does a 90-degree angle on a dime. He is a really unique player to watch. He was my favorite receiver in the draft. I think he's all of our favorite receiver in the draft.
Yeah.
And it was really cool to see him kind of burst onto the scene, despite the fact that he was getting no help from the quarterback at all. Put up, everyone likes to talk about Terry McLaurin as a top 10 quarterback, and he had better numbers than McLaurin with worse quarterback play. Shout out Light for tweeting that out the other day, and I was like,
Common
that is true, isn't it? So I loved the season that he had, and I know we all did here. I will bring up an Ohio State guy, so Matt doesn't have to. But 1,000. I guess maybe he didn't quite have better numbers than Terry McLaurin.
He was 15th in receiving yards, and dude, he had the worst quarterback situation by kind of a lot. I mean, a lot of those that stat was he would have had 1,500 yards if you just
took away the Zach Wilson games
and then just gave him 17 games played. Yeah, I mean, he was. You get him a Garoppolo, and he's not going to be a rookie anymore, dude. It could be special next year. It could be top 5 wide receiver numbers as soon as next year.
Yeah,
I wonder where.
And I don't even think I saw. I didn't think he even showed off his greatest ability this year very much. Like the leaping one-on-one catches on the side, the acrobatic catches, you didn't even see that much of those from him this year. So I think that it's a whole nother superpower that he didn't even really tap into this season. It was all route running and yak ability. And right. I think that, you add that to his game, and I think, you only get so many opportunities to catch those per season. Right. And I know he had one crazy one-handed one that landed just a bit out of bounds, and it didn't quite come this year, that catch of the year contender, but he is capable of it, man. He is very capable. It is in his bag. So I think, with better quarterback play, and I think, there's still some that we didn't see all the way from him this year. I think that he could be, if he's 15th this year, no reason why it can't be top 5 in receiving yards next year.
I'm telling you.
If you think about it.
Yeah. I mean, One thing you guys should have probably figured out about me by now is I'm always going to hype up the wide receiver twos. That's all. I love T. Higgins. George Pickens was like one of my top 3 receivers coming out of the draft. And it's like him and Deontay. But I'm going to go with another one of those guys. And, we're kind of still leaning on the Eagles here. Devontae Smith gets overshadowed too much. He gets overshadowed by his own teammate, A.J. Brown. He gets overshadowed by Waddle too much, who I think you can make a strong case that Devontae was better than him this year in some areas, right? I mean, Devontae has probably better hands than Waddle does. And, we can talk about, his frame's too small. Bro, he plays so much bigger than he actually is. He's a great contested catch artist. He can make some plays after the catch for you. He's just an amazing wide receiver that does not get the credit he deserves. And because he plays with AJ Brown and because he's in that class with Waddle. So he's always getting compared to these other guys, but he needs to be considered in that tier, I think.
One of the quietest, almost 1,200 yard seasons ever. I mean, 1,196 yards. You would have I would have never have guessed that if you just asked me how many yards he had. He had almost 200 yards more than T. Higgins had, right? Yeah. And no one would rank him above T. Higgins. It feels like everyone likes T. Higgins more. Yeah, he had a ridiculous. I love T. Higgins too, right? Yeah, but it is. He is really, really underrated. He was my wide receiver 1 from that draft class, and definitely, I think Chase is definitely better. But Devontae Smith is.
Chase is better. Chase is in that top 5 range. Yeah. But it's if you're gonna, and this people want me to make the wide receiver quiz, and I will. I just want to optimize some things first because it's getting kind of messy. The code is, but I think if we put it out, Higgins would be over him for sure. I think Pickens might even be over him. A lot of people might, just because Pickens flashes, right? It's the one-handed catches, and
I don't think you're crazy to think people would be saying that.
I think people would rank Pickens over him, and I think people would rank Waddle over him. So, but I think that should at least be close. I think that should at least be close. But
yeah, I see your point. Smith did have a very underrated season.
He's great. So that brings us to defense, Matt. Can I guess?
I mean, I've only got 2 options.
It's either Sauce or Frankie Louvu.
Louvu is not where I expected you to go with that. I thought you were going to say Sauce or Bosa.
Oh man, that's not even the 2 I was deciding from. It was Sauce or JC Horn. But look, I will be going with Sauce Gardner. I understand I'm biased, but it's my favorite seasons. So just be happy I haven't picked all Cincinnati players, right?
Dude, Travis Kelce.
Truly, my biggest regret is not just hammering home that Sauce was just that good. And I knew it, and I just didn't. I'm like, but what if I'm wrong? No, dude. I have watched him play so many games in person, and for him to come into the NFL and just instantly be the best cornerback, it just right away. And he has a fair amount of haters, and I just don't get it. He is locked down. You can attribute 1 touchdown to him or whatever you want to. Go for it. I don't care. But all of the talk all offseason about, he didn't play tough enough competition, that was kind of, whatever. You see good receivers anyway, or talk about how his frame wasn't good enough, or how, he's not fast enough, long speed wise. All of that didn't end up mattering. And it should have been clear when you watched him play. It's he didn't let up a touchdown the entirety of college, So to see him ball out and do that, as a Cincy guy, and as, maybe the player I've seen play the most in person and get the most starts in person, I'm really happy to see him do it. So,
I mean, what is it where it's people are just searching through every minute piece of film and highlight tape to try and find any instance where it may have looked like Sauce gave up a touchdown. It's what?
Why?
How obsessed?
Like,
and the crying about DPI.
He may have had a stop here. But I think he held. So he's
really I don't. And that's the greatest. Good corners hold.
That's the greatest compliment you can get as a corner, though, is anytime you do get beat, it's all over social media. It happens to Jair, it happens to Ramsey, it happens to Sauce. And I don't know if it happens to anyone else. Even Horn, when he gets beat, like, it's not all over social media. Sauce has that kind of star power. And it's partly because he's a rookie and he plays in New York and all of that.
Right.
And he's got the name Sauce Gardner. His name is literally Sauce. So he's a very high profile player. But yeah, anytime you do get beat, anytime I see it posted a billion times by like Highlight Heaven or, any other one of those accounts that just posts like relevant information. If it's relevant when you get beat, you're a damn good corner.
And it'll be like he'll be lined up like 6x2 outside and they'll run a drag route and they're like, oh my God, he got beat. It's like,
that Evan Ingram catch. Oh, what a fool. Okay, man. All right. So, and to be first team all pro at a position as hard as cornerback, your rookie season, he's going to be defensive rookie of the year too.
Yeah.
It makes me very happy.
Yeah. Very fair. Theo.
I would say Chris Jones, but I've already done a video on this on the Stay Hot account, so I'll pick someone else. I think Chris Jones should
favorite.
He is my favorite. I'll say that. But since I've already done a video on him, and I will say Dre Greenlaw. He is someone who gets overshadowed. He's a little bit like your Devontae Smith pick, where he's not obviously the one there is Fred Warner, but Dre Greenlaw alongside of him. If you look at the EPA and coverage numbers, James Bradbury is number 1. Sauce Gardner is number 2. Number 3 is Dre Greenlaw. That guy is so twitchy for a linebacker. He's so fast, and he just closes ground so effortlessly when he's in zone. He triggers on those underneath things so quickly, and he could chase guys sideline to sideline, and he was just for him to not get any defensive player or obviously wouldn't get defensive player of the year hype, but Pro Bowl hype, second team all pro hype, anything. It just doesn't happen for him because he plays next to Fred Warner. Now, I don't think he played his best game towards the end versus the Eagles. I thought he took some bad angles and maybe allowed some touchdowns, so that takes a little bit of shine off the season, but overall I thought that he did a fantastic job. And got overshadowed by all the other stars on that defense. So my favorite is Chris Jones. I think that he deserves Defensive Player of the Year, 15.5 sacks. It was 11th all time for a defensive tackle. Just too big, too strong, too fast, too powerful, like just killed people on the interior and was clearly the best interior player in a year of great interior defensive lineman play. And there's like 5 guys I could take for my favorite season for defensive tackles alone. Dexter Lawrence blossoming into a pass rushing threat out of nowhere this year after kind of just being like this big nose tackle, and all of a sudden he's like killing guys, getting after the quarterback. That was also electric. But I'll say Dre Greenlaw. I made a video about him too when I talked about the San Francisco defense, and like he's quite good. I really enjoyed watching him play all year.
Yeah, I always go back to the quote where it's like, this defense wouldn't be like, everyone wants to give credit to Warner and Bosa, and I cannot remember who said it, and I keep meaning to
probably
find
D'Amico or
Warner. But it was like
some
this
high profile
defense,
49ers. Or Bosa.
Greenlaw deserves so much credit for how good this defense is. Was basically the statement, and you're right, he absolutely does. I'm gonna keep things simple to finish us off here. My favorite defensive season is Myles Garrett. I mean, this is how many years in a row where he's like second in defensive player of the year, because he's just like he's always great. I mean, it's almost like, and he hasn't won it, so it's going to be hard, but it's almost like Patrick Mahomes, where it's like, if you were to put money on Myles Garrett at the beginning of the year, eventually you will probably be right. Eventually you will probably be right about that. I mean, he is just, since he came into the league, he's been the best. He's just been awesome. Like, his first play was a sack, and this year he just continues to be dominant. He's just like, has the best bend in the league. He has the best hands in the league. He's like the most athletic, like everything that you could possibly want in a pass. He is the standard. He is the standard for a pass rusher at this point. He's just so good. I had to throw Brown in there. You know, I had to.
It's fair, and he's so boring that it's almost like whenever he doesn't win Defensive Player of the Year, it almost feels like a disappointment from Myles Garrett. But his sack rate was actually it was the same as Bosa's this year, 16 on 442 pass rushes. Bosa had 18.5 on 459. He had one less pressure than Bosa, according to Next Gen Stats this year. He lives in the backfield. He lives
it's
just boring.
And that's on a defensive line and front
old
seven that's weak. Not offering him a ton of help or a ton of,
it's I mean, this was Clowney. Clowney wasn't playing super well this year.
Well, Clowney would tell you it's because they lined Myles Garrett up on the worst players instead of him, which might be true, but like every defense should be doing that.
Right. Yeah. It's like, Clowney, I mean,
plus it's not even true. Plus, that's the other underrated thing about that quote is like they do not move Garrett around very much. He rushes the left tackle like 95% of the time.
If they do move him, he'll just move inside and he'll just go against like the guard.
Right. It's not often that for Clowney's statement, for those who don't know, he's like, they were too focused on Myles Garrett getting stats. They put him over the worst offensive lineman and let him stat pad instead of trying to win games, which is stupid. A, because that's a good idea. And B, because it didn't even happen that much. So anyway, if you don't know the context,
Clowney wasn't.
And then Clowney got like cut from the team like immediately after saying that.
And it's like the defense looked just as good. I almost made Grant Delpit. Because I really do think
that would have been a crazy pick.
It would have been a crazy pick. It would have been a crazy pick because he really isn't that good as a safety. But when they bring him down to play linebacker, he's all of a sudden the best linebacker on the team.
He isn't that good. However, he does play for the Browns, so he must be considered.
Anyway, it's Myles Garrett. It's Myles Garrett. But yeah, so that's the all stay hot team. Would this team win the Super Bowl? Probably. But
it's made out of 3 quarterbacks. No, 4 quarterbacks. 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and 3 defensive players. So I think they'd have an uphill battle.
I think they do just fine. Everyone can play both ways. We'll be all right. But I think that pretty much wraps things up for us. Thank you all so much for tuning in. And we'll give a full Super Bowl preview here pretty soon as we approach the big game. Time? It's about that time. But until next time, from Corn Boy, Bird Boy, and Lemon Boy, we will catch you all on the Flippity Flop.